Coming up on today's show, James Harden's first 5 games as a Sixer have been historic. We'll take a look at the numbers. Also, former NBA player and number 1 pick Andrew Bogut is hearing that Bradley Beal is desperate to get traded to the Philadelphia 76ers so that he can team up with Joel Embiid and James Harden. But first, make sure you subscribe to 76ers Now by Chat Sports. We already overtook those frauds at New York Knicks Now, my boy Marshall Green. Next up, we're coming at Boston Celtics today. Let's overtake those Boston bums like the Boston Strangler and Andrew Toney. So if you want the best Sixers news and rumors right here on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button down below, and let's talk some Sixers hoops right now. Welcome in to Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Senior. Before we get into those juicy rumors surrounding Bradley Beal, who right now is out for the rest of the year, we begin with James Harden and his profound impact on the entire Sixers organization, especially on the basketball floor, because what we're seeing on the floor right now really is magical, and it's been a joy to watch. The Sixers right now are a really fun team, paced by James Harden, who's kind of extending his prime right now as he continues to play more of a deferring and pass-first point guard who can still score at all 3 levels. Joel Embiid is historic night in and night out, and Tyrese Maxey is a budding superstar. But you look at what James Harden has been able to do in his first 5 games as a Sixer, leading the Sixers to a 5-0 record when he's in the lineup. He's playing around 37 minutes per game. I'd like to see that continue, kind of conserve him a little bit, and Joel Embiid as we get closer and closer to the NBA playoffs. 24.5 points per game, those numbers are fine. He doesn't need to average 30 plus on this roster. 12 assists. His passing ability has really blown me away. In fact, it's been the most impressive component of what Harden has brought to the floor for Philly, and 7.5 rebounds. Then you shift to his shooting splits. Really good. And there was all this chatter about James Harden being tapped out in Brooklyn. He looks engaged. He looks like he's having fun playing basketball, and it has opened up so many offensive looks for Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, but also James Harden. He's getting so many opportunities to put the biscuit in the basket, and he's connecting. 53% on his field goals, 45% nearly from downtown, 89% from the free throw line, and 60% on his 2-point attempts. And Sixers stats put this in perspective. It's been historic. In fact, we've never seen a player get off to this good of a start with a new team. In 5 appearances with the Sixers, James Harden has totaled 123 points and 62 dimes. First player in NBA history to post at least 120 points and 60 assists in their first 5 games with a franchise. And I was expecting James Harden to play well for Philadelphia because I thought him playing alongside Joel Embiid in that 2-man game was really going to be dominant. That 2-man game has been more dominant than I had thought. He's really had more energy and stamina than I thought. I thought he was going to have to work into shape, but he has just played great. And he's even given this team something on the defensive end of the floor. When Daryl Morey said that James Harden was a basketball savant, I see exactly what he was talking about. And obviously, Daryl Morey knew James Harden well because he traded for him when he was with the Houston Rockets. And since he took over basketball operations for Philadelphia, James Harden has continued to be the apple of his eye. But James Harden has a terrific basketball IQ. His feel for the game is extraordinary. His vision is top-notch. And he really is extending his prime right now as he's adapted and evolved his own offensive style as more of a pass-first point guard who utilizes that vision, but also that craftiness to his offensive game, where he's never been the best athlete, but the footwork, the basketball IQ, and the knowledge of him picking and choosing his spots and using that step back and using the stutter step to get wherever he wants to get a shot off really is tremendous. And James Harden has been better than advertised for Philadelphia following the trade. Now, if you could grade James Harden's first 5 games as a Sixer, how would you grade him? Anything but A, I think you're kind of crazy, but here on 76ers Now, it's an open discourse, and we love to have open-minded discussions. Shoot, people watch the show and they rip me in the comment section. It's all good. You get into the comment section right now and scale Harden's first 5 games, A, B, C, D, or F. Before we get to Bradley Beal, I want to tell you about a great deal thanks to our friends at Fanatics. And if you're like me, you love supporting this basketball squad no matter where you are. Chat Sports Studios are in Dallas. I still rep my Philadelphia roots, and you can too with this Philadelphia 76ers Liberty Bell hoodie, which is available $28 off, but only if you use that link down below so that Fanatics knows that Chat Sports sent you. Chatsports.com/LibertyBell will take you to the promised land. I'll put that link in the comment section as well as the description of this video. We now shift to some really wild Sixers rumors coming from Andrew Bogut. Now, some might say, Andrew Bogut, a washed former player who doesn't know anything, isn't tapped in like an Adrian Wojnarowski or Shams Charania. Look, I think some of the top NBA reporters out there are being led in a certain direction due to agent power from Clutch Sports and some other agents out there. Andrew Bogut, who's to say that he doesn't have ties to some current players and front office executives as well as coaches across the NBA? He said on his podcast that Bradley Beal is desperately trying to get traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, recent reports do indicate that Bradley Beal has said that he is willing to sign a long-term deal with the Washington Wizards. But it's not like coaches and players never lie, right? Here's what Bogut said on his pod. I've heard a pretty big rumor from some people that are pretty close to the situation in the NBA. A big three to Philly. Really? It'd actually be a big four with Tyrese Maxey. Brad Beal is trying to get to Philadelphia in the offseason to team up with James Harden and Joel Embiid. Philly's desperate, obviously, to try to get off that Tobias Harris contract anyway. They have been for a while. And I think they're even more desperate now to free up that cap space somehow. It will most likely have to be a sign and trade with Philly, but don't be surprised if a big three forms in Philadelphia. That's the word on the street. Before we continue to break this down, you read that and you listen to my golden pipes pass along that quote. What do you think? Is landing Bradley Beal realistic for the 76ers? We know Daryl Morey is really aggressive. Type R for realistic, U for unrealistic. And if you asked me, honestly, I don't know if I'd make the trade for Bradley Beal because I want to see Tyrese Maxey continue to ball out. But if you're trading away Tobias Harris for Bradley Beal, yeah, then we can get to talking. Tobias Harris's contract. It's doable because Bradley Beal, if it is a sign-in trade, will probably sign a max contract. So Tobias Harris's contract is tradable if you absorb that if you're Washington and then trade away Bradley Beal. On the books for about $36 million in base salary this year, $37.5 million the next, $39 million in 2023-2024 before he becomes an unrestricted free agent at 32 years old. Now, when it comes down to Tobias Harris, I've always said this, and some people have chirped at me in the comment section saying, yo, Chase, you never come at a man for his money. You can't rip Tobias Harris for his contract. No, it was Elton Brand who gave him that contract. But this is what I can say about Toby. He's a great guy, a good player who's getting paid great player money. And that's all that Tobias Harris will ever be, in my opinion. And that's what he is right now. 18 points per game, 7 boards, 47.5% from the hardwood, and about 33.5% from beyond the arc. Those are solid numbers. And Tobias Harris is a very solid player, like a borderline all-star type of player. My problem with that is, if I'm running a business, I'm looking at ways to improve my employee staff, and the Sixers are looking to improve their roster. And Tobias Harris really does have limitations to his game. Toby is a nice player. Bradley Beal is a very good player on most nights, and on some nights, he is a great player. Now, I don't understand the stance from guys like Beal as well as Damian Lillard when they say they want to remain with the teams that drafted them. It might be the basketball fan in me. I want to see very good and great players go to destinations where they can really fully live up to their expectations and play to their fullest capabilities. And to see Bradley Beal in Washington, Dame in Portland, we're not truly able to see their greatness. You don't get as much attention playing in a market like that. You're not on nationally televised games, and you're not playing in big games. So Bradley Beal should salivate at the idea of playing for the Sixers, because imagine how many open shot looks he would get playing alongside Harden, Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. It's a really good offensive lineup. It's not so much a great defensive lineup. Now, Bradley Beal, what type of player is he? Last year, finished runner-up in the NBA scoring title behind Steph Curry. Really good year for him, career year up to this point since getting drafted out of Florida. 31-plus points per game, 23 field goal attempts per night, connected on 48.5% of his shots, almost 35% from deep, and almost 89% from the free throw line. This year, though, his shooting numbers were down, and he did undergo wrist surgery, so maybe that had something to do with his shooting numbers dipping really, really severely, by the way, because points per game went down to 23, field goal attempts went down, field goal percentage and three-point numbers went down significantly, and the free throw percentage went down, which is really, really weird for me. This is how I look at Bradley Beal. Not a great defensive player, a very good offensive player with a bunch of moves in his pocket, and he really is a walking bucket. And again, like, you put Bradley Beal next to the players on this roster, and you just let any individual cook on any given night, and offensively, he gives you more than Tobias Harris, making around the same money as Tobias Harris. Before we get out of here, been a fun discussion on today's show. Appreciate all of you for making 76ers Now a part of your day. If you're still watching, you're a real one. And if you're still watching and you give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_senior, I'll give you a shout out on the next show. Probably going to be doing another show tomorrow because this channel is so hot. So you have a few hours to give me a follow on Twitter and IG at Chase_senior. Same handle on both. You do that, and maybe you slide in my DMs, maybe you shout me out in my Twitter mentions, and therefore I'll be able to see it. But either way, appreciate all the support. Hit me up. I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching 76ers Now, and don't forget to subscribe.